Homebrew is brought to you by 5-Star Chemicals, providing safety and cleaning supplies for brewing, distilling, and winemaking at 5starchemicals.com.
Doctor, look!
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Stand clear.
All right, everybody, welcome to another fine edition of Dr. Homebrew. My name is Jason, and I'm your host for today.
Hi, Jason. How are you doing?
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hey, pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, actually.
That's good.
Glad to hear.
Lee, how are you?
I'm just fabulous. Thank you.
We're all fine and good here.
Yes.
How are you people out there in Beer Radio land? Thanks for sticking with us. I know right now our site is down, so if you guys are listening live, it's got to be over the new live stream page. So they're kind of forced to see us, forced to see our faces.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What is that page?
new.livestream.com/brewing network.
Okay.
And if you aren't listening live and you want to see our faces, you can log in there, and this show is conveniently for you. It's ready. It's ready right there. It's up.
Hey, do we have any sponsors for this show?
We do have sponsors. We have a few sponsors. The main sponsor, the one that I like to focus on the most, is 5-Star Chemicals.
I like those guys.
They're pretty good, right?
You know, they make some good products.
I just brewed with my buddy Warren this weekend, and we used 5-Star PBW to clean the heck out of my conical, which hadn't been cleaned in 3 months. Worked like a charm. It was great. I love it. And if you're a lazy brewer like me, go over to 5starchemicals.com. You know 5-Star. If you're a home brewer of any sort of length of time, you've seen their products before. It's PBW, Star Sand, Sandy Clean, stuff like that. If you haven't used them, please give them a try. We think that you'll like them. I really enjoy them. 5-Star, they're great. Basically they're the ones who kind of introduced the fact that you can't just use one of those single step cleaners to clean and sanitize at the same time. You have to do it in a particular order. You have to clean first and then sanitize. So don't trust anything else that you see on the market, because it's not really going to work as well as a PBW Star Sand combination punch will.
When done in the right order, yes.
Right. Yes. So anyway, pick them up. Try it out. PBW 5-Star, 5starchemicals.com. Ask for them at your local homebrew supply store. Okay, we have a couple beers for you today, and in case you don't really know much about Dr. Homebrew, let me just explain it to you. It's basically an interactive BJCP score sheet. My good friends Brian and Lee will sit down and they judge some beers. You send in beers, they judge them, and then we come on the show. We bring you on the show and we talk to you about your beer. Maybe you're looking for some off flavors that you think that there's some funkiness going on, but you really don't know how to find it, or you know that it's there, or you know how to find it, but you don't know what to do with it.
Maybe you're looking to add some off flavors to your beer to make it more interesting.
Maybe that's true.
We can tell you how to do that too.
We sure can.
Yeah, we got some good ideas there.
Your beer's too good. You just keep scoring 48s at all the competition.
Yeah.
You want to come down just a notch.
Maybe don't use 5-Star, and then your beer will start to really not be too good. Anyway, so today we have two beers. What do we have, guys? We have a spiced American brown ale, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the other one? I forget.
It's an Oktoberfest.
Oktoberfest. Have we ever had a fest beer before?
Not on the show, no.
Well, not as many lagers as ales, and you got to appreciate the skills out there in the lager brewing homebrewer community out there. It's a skill you have to really work at to get right and nail it. So
it is, and I've tried it once or twice. They're okay, but I don't know what my problem is with lagers. I wonder if it's just a lack of water treatment. I don't do anything with my water. I carbon filter.
There's this great show you could bring your beer into called Dr. Homebrew.
Well, yeah, but those guys are kind of jerks.
We are, nice. but that's what you need, right, JP? To get you to stop being such a lazy brewer.
That's true. I realized when I was brewing with Warren, I just really don't like the act of brewing beer. I like recipe formulation and tasting beer and figuring that stuff out. But as far as sitting around in my garage, just watching a kettle boil and timing things and running around, I just don't like it.
You don't get that same religious experience that we get. Man, what's wrong?
You can put some music on while you do it.
I do. I have music, and it's just, it's like, okay.
3 hours of air guitar later, it's time to start loudering, huh?
You can only do the air splits so many times. And then the neighbors drive by and go, what are they doing?
Not again.
That's always my favorite. People driving by, and they look in your garage. They give you the long look, and they're just driving by, and they're staring at you.
Running into the phone pole.
Yeah, stop looking at my garage.
I had a guy walk by my garage one time, and this guy's like, 3-year-old daughter. So, what's that guy doing? And he said, oh, he's making daddy juice. Like, he knew what I was doing. I was like, cool. That guy's cool.
Daddy juice. I don't know. That's weird. I don't know if I could ever describe anything that's called daddy juice.
Well, you'll have to propagate the species, then you'll understand,
Right. Yeah, who wants to do that? That's work. All right, well, we've introed the show. We've introed the beers. We're going to get Andrew on the phone here in a bit and via Skype. So cross your Skype fingers, guys. And we'll start judging this beer, this brown ale, right? The spiced
brown. That's the first one up.
That's the first one up, guys.
Hot dog. All right.
Yeah, I should have looked at them before I did the order, but what are you gonna do?
We'll just live with it.
You guys will be fine.
We'll start with the dark ale. We'll go to the lighter colored lager.
Right.
It's okay.
This is the new order here. We'll live.
Yeah, why not? Anyway, it's Dr. Homebrew, everybody. Hang on a sec. We'll be right back.
Do you know the 3 most important rules in brewing? Sanitation, sanitation, and sanitation. And no one does it better than 5-Star Chemicals. 5-Star knows sanitation. You can only sanitize clean equipment. And 5-Star knows how to clean, too. For craft brewers and home brewers, 5-Star has what you need to keep your fermenters, serving tanks, kegs, and draft lines sparkling and free of any beer-spoiling bacteria. PBW, caustic, acid cleaners, Star San, SaniClean, lubricants and defoamers, pH stabilizers, and more. 5-Star Chemicals has cleaning supplies, safety supplies, heat exchangers, pumps, hoses, and valves. And 5-Star is proud to offer eco-friendly products that exceed customer expectations. If you have a cleaning problem, you need the 5-Star solution. Visit 5starchemicals.com or call 800-782-7019. 800-782-7019 and get the 5-Star treatment today.
Hey, Wooly, I'm beat. Can we find a nice tree to just hang out in for a while?
You're beat. I've been swinging through this forest for 50 years, ever since we first escaped from the circus. I know, but there's got to be more to life than exploring this creek and trying to populate the valley by copulating with loose, hairy girls. Marquis, stop. Look.
What is that?
It looks like a man-made treehouse.
With fresh food.
And craft beer.
Welcome to the Creek Monkey Tap House, boys. Grab a seat. Creek Monkeys drink free.
Awesome!
The Creek Monkey Tap House in Martinez, California takes their mission of fresh food and beer seriously. They only serve locally raised beef and chicken, as well as local sustainable produce. It's better for you and the planet, and it just tastes better. The beer and wine at Creek Monkey Tap House are chosen with the same care for the highest quality and rotate frequently to make each visit an adventure. Swing on into the Creek Monkey Tap House and enjoy a new legend of amazing food, beer, and wine. The Creek Monkey Tap House, online at creekmonkey.com.
Come along now. It's time for your medication.
All right, everybody, welcome back. On the line with me, we should have Andy. Andy, are you there, buddy?
I'm here.
All right. Hey, Skype's working. That's amazing. Anyway, thanks for joining us. I know it's a little late where you are, but beer waits for no man. You know what I mean?
I'm happy to be on with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So tell me a little bit about this beer here. This is an American brown with some spices in it, right?
No. Actually,
okay.
It was I brewed the beer based on a recipe before, which was going to be a fall spice beer, and I had some fermentation issues, I think, where it fermented too high. So the taste, I decided not to do the spice. And so I actually did some other things to the beer and entered it into a competition and got back comments of like this overwhelming banana flavor, and that I really should have entered it as a fruit beer, a brown banana, rather than a specialty.
Mm-hmm. Brown banana beer?
Yeah.
Brown banana. Okay. All right. And how long have you been homebrewing?
A little over a year.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Not too bad. Little noob. Little green around the ears, or whatever they say. Gills? Wet behind the ears? I don't know.
Yeah, definitely a newbie.
That's good. How you liking it so far?
I'm pretty hooked. So
Yeah.
I've brewed a lot this year. I think I did like the first 5 batches extract, and then went to all grain, and I've just been going strong since.
Awesome. So, okay, well, what can we help you out with this beer then? What would you like to get out of this?
Well, the one thing I wanted to know was just about entering competitions too, and when you have a beer that doesn't, maybe turn out necessarily what you're going for, that was, the comment was really, the last thing the judge wrote was this would score well or better as a brown banana. So wanted to talk about that, and then just being so new, wanted to see if I could taste it with you and talk about off flavors, and that's something that I don't really have yet, is being able to pick up off flavors. Sure,
yeah. Well, do you have this beer in front of you right now?
I do.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Lee, why don't you start us off, man?
All right. The aroma on this beer started out with kind of some cocoa chocolate, a little bit of kind of a root beer estery kind of flavor or aroma. And some alcohol was apparent in the nose. Had a little bit of a kind of hot solventy edge to my nose. A little bit of wood and vanilla aromas. Some hints of maybe some clove or brown spices, some kind of phenolic characters like that. Didn't pick up any hops, which is probably fine for this kind of a beer. No DMS or diacetyl. It seemed like I was getting some character there of some fairly warm alcohol, and definitely some kind of phenolic character there, like spicy character. Appearance is deep brown, had pretty good clarity. You can see through it pretty well. It wasn't quite brilliant, but it's pretty good clarity. Pours a pretty low tan head that fades immediately to a low bead. The flavor started out with a lot of spice and some drying wood character. With a fairly strong ester profile. I got cherries and banana. I got cherries more than banana, actually, in this one. The alcohol flavor, again, with kind of a bourbon-y cast, and again, some kind of a solventy, almost kind of like a rubbing alcohol kind of character to the alcohol. Malt flavors, kind of cocoa and chocolate, and that's about it. I would say the brown ale character has gotten pretty well submerged under a lot of the specialty additions, and probably the warm ferment that you mentioned here. Well, it's no hop flavor, just enough bitter to support it. Balances definitely to the malt. Finishes a little bit sweet with lingering wood and cocoa and some of that alcohol, bourbony, solventy character, and cherry. Had a medium to medium-low body. Carbonation was pretty low. It wasn't quite flat, but it was definitely lower than it probably needs to be. It's not astringent, really, but it definitely has a drying character to it. Likely from the wood that you put in there and some of the alcohol and the dark malts, and maybe some of those phenolics are participating in that as well. The alcohol warmth was there, a little bit of that low edge to it, the solventy note. Creaminess is pretty low overall. I thought it was kind of an interesting combination of flavors in here. We were presented with this as having spices in it, but I guess it didn't. But definitely had some phenols in there, which are the same class of flavors, aromas that spices usually you will get from spice addition, especially if you're using brown spice sort of things like cloves or nutmeg or that sort of thing. So if you didn't add any, I'm kind of curious where that's coming from.
But also his choice not to add spices, the intuition there was probably pretty good, I would say, because not to just bust in on you there, but yeah, I think if he would have added a lot of spices to this, it would have just been fighting with everything else there. Go on, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The wood flavor is in pretty good balance with the beer. It's not too strong. The esters are quite strong, especially the cherry. The banana comes out more as it warms up. A lot of drying character, and just a lot of kind of a high alcohol character to it. You'd mentioned, I guess, you had a pretty high ferment temperature on this one.
Yeah, I think it was the Y Yeast 1056, and it fermented probably around 72, which is kind of the higher end of that the scale for that.
That's high. It's not out of the ballpark high, really. But I would say in this case, you definitely got some sort of higher alcohols in there. It's not the worst kind of solventy stuff I've ever had, but it's just got a little bit of kind of a rubbing alcohol character to it. The other possibility is it could have come from whatever spirits you used to soak the wood chips. If it wasn't the best quality spirits, I don't know what you used, but sometimes you'll get that out of those. So, I don't know. Brian, do you want to do a few notes in this before we go into maybe what you might want to troubleshoot, or you want me to just dive into that?
Yeah, go for it, Lee.
All right.
Got a page full of notes to read there.
Okay. Yeah. So, what to do with a beer like this, since you're looking for some feedback. First thing I think you need to do is get the bottle carbonation up. It's hard. It's dark enough. I couldn't really see if you bottle conditioned this or if it was a counter pressure fill. But definitely the carbonation needs to go up. So maybe some fresher yeast if you're active growing yeast, if you're bottle conditioning, or make sure you freeze, put your bottles in the freezer and fill with ice cold beer if you're doing a counter pressure fill on to help keep the carbonation from escaping. The cocoa in the base style was kind of nice, but the rest of the beer was kind of lost under all that ferment character and the wood and everything. So you might want to, I think you definitely need to bring down the ferment character. The wood, maybe not. Maybe you don't need to throttle that back. I don't know. That may be okay. It's a little forward, but not bad. But if the ferment, the alcohol in here, and if you didn't add spices, that phenol characteristic is all kind of puzzling. For the alcohol, I would just make sure you pitch with a fresh, healthy, active yeast culture. Make sure you use a starter if you didn't. Make sure you have enough yeast to do whatever volume and gravity of beer you've got going there. There's a couple online calculators you can find to help you out with that. And
Mr. Malty.
Mr. Malty's one. Yeah, some rumor has it he has some connection to this facility we're in here. And other than that, I think that's the main thing. The phenolic flavors I'm getting here are a bit of a puzzle, though, if you didn't add spices. If you did not add spices, they might suggest maybe some wild yeast got in there or something that would give that kind of a character to it. It didn't come across to me like that, but Brian might have some other ideas on that. I don't know. Anyways, I think this is something, if you're interested in, you should maybe repeat and try again. Might take a few times to get the balance to come out right and get the ferment control to where you need it. I think it's actually a pretty good idea. There's a lot of interesting flavors in here, too, but I think it's going to take some work to get it worked out properly. Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Lee. I agree with a lot of what you said there. So yeah, it's hopefully we don't lose you. He's awfully quiet over there. Are we pissing you off, Andy? Sorry.
No, I'm still here.
I'm sure he's just hanging out.
He's listening intently and drinking. We don't want our East Coasters to fall asleep here because we just drone on about the beer. So yeah, in the nose, there were definitely some high, kind of slightly odd dark fruit notes in there. It had like kind of a plum and dark cherry. In the malt side of things, it's some of the esters that were popping through. In the malt side of things, there was kind of a low chocolatiness in there and a bit of a hazelnutty thing. There was just a little bit of nuttiness in there. But for this style, you probably would want a lot more malt complexity coming through up front. Even if you do have it balanced with something else like a booze and wood thing, you want that to come through, just enough so that it's, complex enough. I don't know what the malt bill was. We can take a look at that and see what malts were in there. It did have a moderate kind of plasticky phenolic in the nose. If you just put your nose down in that beer and take a few short sniffs, especially right after you just pour a fresh sample of it, sometimes that could blow off just a little bit, but it's just smells like kind of smelling the inside of a dirty plastic bucket kind of thing a little bit. It's not like the Band-Aid-y kind of one. You can get that too sometimes, but this is just kind of a straight plasticky phenolic to me.
Kind of like a plastic soda bottle.
Plastic soda bottle.
Without soda in it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like a cherry Coke. Like a cherry Coke soda bottle.
So yeah, I agree with what Lee's comments about the hot alcohol. It was in there, and it was a bit of a sharp hot alcoholic note. It wasn't too offensive in the aroma, but you could kind of guess that it might have been fermented a little high, and we were also told that it was fermented a little high, so that jived. Didn't get any hops like Lee did. No DMS or diacetyl in there. It had faintly, had a fair amount of booze and a faint little woodiness in there. You could pick up some of the declared items in there, which is good. But the wood was pretty low. It was kind of fighting to be noticed in there. Deep dark brown beer seems fairly clear. Mostly fine bubbles, dropped just like Lee said. It did drop pretty quickly. So poor head retention, but don't knock it down too bad for that. As far as the flavor goes, this kind of interesting merging of maltiness and booze, and it's got this slightly cocoa-y thing going on. With the booze, those are the first two things I kind of picked up, and then below that, in the flavor, the phenolic came through a little less to me, but still get a lot of that hot alcohol solventy notes in there, and evidence of a high ale temp ferment. Had some components of kind of the things you get from a kind of frenzied yeast. From your yeast just gets a little too happy and takes off and is like, I'm going to kick out all these flavors, man. And some
that's possible.
Funky, esters and just but I think that I would think that the phenolic itself might not be coming from the intended yeast strain. You could have some wild yeast in there. I'm speculating, but you have to be really careful to pitch enough happy, healthy yeast in there, like Lee said.
Can your yeast get too happy? I mean, is that what you're kind of saying, or you?
Well, yeast is kind of like like you're a lazy brewer. Yeast, if you give it too high of a temperature, it's got all the sugar there, and it just gets super happy and frenzied, and just kind of just like eat, and like crap out whatever. This is a big party. It's just on a binge, and it's purging whatever it can. It doesn't have to like kind of ferment at a controlled pace and really focus on and it's not like work. It's like a crazy frat party. You know what I mean? It's not like you're sitting there doing productive things and working on projects and assembling your teams and putting things together. Anyway, so yeah, I mean that's
Brian's deep in analogy.
Weird analogy, but
somewhat analogous analogy.
You want to keep your yeast working for you.
It's kind of like an analogy.
Yeah,
so,
yeast will start putting out a lot of alcohols that aren't ethanol when they get too warm. You'll get up in that solventy, rubbing alcohol kind of territory. And they'll put out more and more esters, and they won't always be nice, and they could do other things too. But
right.
It's more temperature related.
Yes, temperature related, yeah.
Yeah, those higher alcohols are just kind of the same components. They just have more carbons in the chain. They're just longer chain alcohols. And it doesn't take many of them. Most of them have a pretty low flavor threshold, so even if the yeast isn't kicking out a ton of it, it still becomes noticeable pretty quickly. So anyway, I'll leave my weird little analogy land for now and come back to Earth. There was some booze in the flavor, a hint of a little cold coffee in the aftertaste. Kind of the maltiness wasn't as much as what I wanted for a American brown ale. And there was no hop. I think you need at least some to balance it in an American brown ale. It calls for, low to moderate, and some even have a higher hop. With the booze, I wouldn't probably go too high with it. But, and I also thought, there was spice declared. I thought the spice was kind of indistinct, but now we find out there's no spice. It was perhaps a bit clove-like. That could also be, like Lee said, coming from the phenolics. I think that's probably what it was. Body-wise, it's a little warming and hot in the throat. I agree with what Lee said. It's hard to tell if it's coming from the booze or from the higher alcohols, but it's got a little warmth in the back of the throat. You feel that? I did get a little bit of a stringent bite. It wasn't very creamy. Carbonation was kind of medium low, and it was just kind of biting overall. But missing a lot of these elements you need for the American brown, as I kind of said already. So the phenolic was a little distracting in the aroma, and less so in the flavor. I would just keep your yeast really happy, pitch plenty of it, aerate or oxygenate your wort. If it's a really big beer, you want to oxygenate to get enough. With aeration, you only get up to about 8 parts per million, even though you shake it all day before you pitch the yeast. pitch it at the appropriate temperature. I would start in the middle to upper 60s, and start at 66, get it up to 68 or something, let it ferment away happy. Doesn't sound like you were too far off there, so that's fine. But yeah, the woody boozy element, it's like it was playing okay with the beer, but the base style was just not there, and it was just kind of, the wood was kind of finding to be noticed behind some of the off flavors, and just, if you clean that up a little bit, work on your base style first. I would just like go back and rebrew just the base beer again, and try to brew it a few times. If this is a beer that you like and you want to drink more of, try to do it a few times and make slight tweaks to your recipe and your process, and watch other people brewing, and maybe brew with a buddy, get someone over. If you're in a homebrew club, there's always people looking to brew with other folks.
Well,
and yeah,
Andy, why don't you go through the recipe on this thing?
Sure. I used about 65% American 2-row, 15% Crystal 10 Lovibond, brown sugar probably 10%, and then pale chocolate probably 10%. I had Amarillo hops for bittering only, about not quite 1 ounce. Mashed it 154. And like I said, I used the Y yeast 1056. I did a 1 liter starter with 1 smack pack. So I guess one question, do you think I should have pitched more yeast?
1 smack pack. How big a batch was this?
5 gallon.
5 gallons.
I think you should be fine with that
in
amount.
Theory,
if it's a 1060 or below. Or
what was the starting gravity on this beer?
060.
Okay. You should have been fine. Was the yeast pretty fresh? You got to look at the dates too. Sometimes you'll get an older pack, but I used to just think, well, a yeast pack's a yeast pack. But then you look at the date, it's like 6 months old, 10 months old. It's like, whoa.
Did it blow up fast when you hit it?
No, it didn't. That actually, the smack pack I got, I think it might have been kind of on the its last leg of use, and it didn't kind of, before I've always had pretty good luck with a fast swell on those, and this one didn't.
I think this would have been a totally different beer with a fresh smack pack. And if you sit, you watch your yeast pack and it's swelling and it's just trying to go, and you're still a day or two before you're even going to brew the beer. Just go to the store that day and get more yeast and pitch it into your starter and get it happier. And also you can when you cut open, you should know what a nice fresh yeast pack smells like when you crack it open, and one that's swelled right up and has that fresh kind of bready, doughy smell to it, and it's good. But if you get some weird kind of, it's just smells a little off or doesn't smell right, don't even put it in your starter.
Yeah. And if one of those things, if you're doing it at room temperature and it's not that cold where you're doing it, if it doesn't blow up overnight, I would think twice before using it. And they should all have a date on them too. It should be fairly recent date whenever you buy one of those. If it's more than a month old or 6 weeks, I would talk to the guys at the store, look around for a different pack.
Absolutely.
That's getting too old. They don't last forever. I would say, I would say you should go back to that store and talk to those guys. I think they owe you a smack pack of good fresh yeast at least. Honestly, they kind of killed your beer here. I would put a lot of this on that, because all those solventy characteristics are probably coming from a yeast that was just too weak to get the job done. And it just didn't work. I mean, it's possible you might have added a little bit too much of the booze from whatever bourbon you were spiking this with, too. You might want to throttle that back a bit. But that would not yet necessarily explain that hot solventy character, unless you use like some total Thunderbird Ripple sort of shit booze.
No, I used Maker's Mark.
Yeah, that shouldn't be adding that sort of hot solventy character.
Yeah. And you have that kind of cherry cola thing going on, too. And I don't know where that's coming from either.
Probably some esters from a yeast that was just too stressed out. So the whole thing about yeast producing esters and high alcohols like this, high temperature is the way people usually talk about it, but there's other ways to get there. If you put too much yeast to make it essentially work too hard to ferment out, you can get that. If your yeast isn't healthy, you can get a lot of that. Basically, it's all a matter of the yeast not really having enough yeast there for it to comfortably and easily do the job you've put before it. If it can't do it, you're going to start getting all these sorts of off flavors. And it sounds to me like you probably had enough yeast or close to it, but it wasn't healthy, and it just went the wrong way.
Okay. There's a scale from vigorous.
I tasted a lot of the stuff that you guys brought up, and that's why I decided not to spice it.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't need spicing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeast kind of like the vitality of the yeast has a scale from kind of being very vigorous to being very kind of wimpy and just kind of chugging along, barely breathing kind of a thing. It's yeah.
Andy, do you have any questions for the guys besides what we've kind of touched on here?
No, I think they hit everything that I was kind of hoping to talk about and hear, and good advice. And like I said, I tasted a lot of the things after it fermented, and that's why I kind of aborted the spice beer, and then just decided to go with the wood and the bourbon to try something else with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and in a competition, to get to that point, I wanted to address that. In a competition, I would give this beer like a 17. It just has a lot of off flavors and aromas, and really isn't hitting the style. So that's where I would put it. But so the point is, if you have a beer that comes out like that, and you're picking out a lot of the same things we are, you want to fix it and make a better beer, I wouldn't even enter it in a competition. If you enjoy it enough, and your friends want to drink it, just drink it. Or, there's no real like saving a beer like this by tweaking it and like putting it in a booze barrel. Or, I mean, you could sour it and see what happens. I don't know, but it still would probably have the phenolic and weirdness. It wouldn't be a good sour beer. People say, oh, well, just enter your weird, funky beers as a Belgian beer and it'll be fine. It's like, I don't think that the judges who give you advice to recategorize it as a banana beer or something that's not really good advice. They should be telling you how to make it the beer that you intended it to be, and give you the tips and tricks to fix it to that point, what you intended. So
yeah, when Andy said that, I was like, that's not right. That's not what you're supposed to do as a beer judge. You're supposed to judge the beer based on the style that you were given, and that's it. Not how to game the system a little bit and say, oh, well, here the flaws that you have in this beer are going to work better in this category.
Sometimes that's not.
And the judge there is assuming probably that he put bananas in there to get that flavor.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I wonder,
because if he thought it was just esters from hot ferment, he should have said this beer fermented too hot, and that's the flaw. And you should address that by bringing the temperature down or pitching healthier yeast.
I don't really get any banana out of it. Like you said, I got more like cherry cola.
Yeah, there's some banana, but yeah.
And maybe you've died down a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'd say, I mean, if you have a beer like this and you're not going to send it in here to us, and we only do a couple of these a month, you can enter it in a competition, but you'd be entering for a different reason. I mean, if you think it's really weird, put it as the style you made and see what kind of feedback you get from the judges. In that case, maybe it wasn't the most useful feedback you could have got. Put it in as a banana fruit beer, but hopefully most judges would be able to pick out that this beer had a hot ferment and had some issues with it, and give you some good feedback on how to do it better next time. Yeah. I think for all its flaws, there's a lot of interesting stuff floating around in here. I think this would be worth making sure you get some healthy yeast next time and give it another shot.
Well, I wonder if we can't address the brown sugar edition real fast in there.
That could bring up the alcohol character a lot, depending on how much you put in, because that will turn straight into alcohol, and it will dry out the body and lessen the body.
Right, yeah, and in place of using malts or specialty grains to get that gravity boost, to get that extra sugar, you're putting brown sugar in there, which, like you said, will just go straight to the starting gravity, but leave the body kind of lacking. Yeah. So maybe that's his problem also.
If you put, it could be. How much did you put in there again?
He said 10%.
10%? That's a lot. That's a fairly high amount for a beer like this. Yeah.
I don't know that
I'd maybe cut that back a bit.
I don't know I'd put any.
I don't know that I'd put any brown sugar in an American brown ale. I mean, you think that, brown sugar tastes good, it's nice and sweet, and it's going to add something to the beer. Intuitively, you would think that, but in reality, this beer is a little dry. That I was going to say, too, that does lack some of that sweetness. It kind of finishes dry, so the chocolate flavors that are there are not getting pushed up and having that sweetness accenting it. So it's kind of not working on that element too. So it finishes pretty dry. And the brown sugar, things like brown sugar, molasses, and things like that, and different kinds of sugars can have like other elements than just the sugar in there that leave a little bit of funky flavor behind, when all of that sweetness that was in the sugar just dries out into alcohol, and you're left with whatever little residual funky flavors are left over from that sugar. So
I mean, to get that mouth, or to get that body, and maybe the replication of some of those, flavors that you maybe intended, try a blend of crystal malts, maybe, not just straight crystal 10, but maybe some higher love like a 40 and a 60 maybe, or something, just to get kind of deeper.
Something to boost that malt complexity, yeah.
Andy, there?
Yep.
All right, good.
Yep. Yeah, that'll work.
I guess just check your recipe out.
Lee and I both found that the body was kind of light, medium light, and that I think that's where it's coming from. The sugar thing is it just dried it out and left it kind of lighter, and
I can definitely taste that.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting beer, and it's got a lot of flavors in it, and a lot of fruit, and a little booze, and a little bit of wood. It just doesn't work as that intended style. So you drink it, enjoy it, and it's a drinkable beer. It's got enough interesting things going on, but you can fix this and make it a lot better the next time. I think keep trying, keep working at it.
Give yourself permission.
Yeah. All right, Andy, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you.
Got everybody.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh yeah, of course, man. And let us know how it goes. If you want to rebrew it and send it in, let me know, please. We'd love to check out your progress.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
Cheers, man.
Take it easy, man.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah. And one thing that can be said about judges is, they put their name, and we're doing this now too, putting our name and our email address and our BJCP ID on the score sheet. Mm-hmm. If you get feedback from a judge that's just, they just bitched you out about your beer and said, oh, it's the most horrible thing ever. The tone of feedback should be fairly positive. Sometimes the judge is just looking for a little cop-out and can say, just categorize it as that, and they're being lazy. If they're not giving you the feedback you want and deserve, or their comments are a little off color, you can contact them and ask for clarification, or you can even contact the BJCP if you get something that's really inappropriate on a score sheet.
Yeah.
And,
let them know.
Let the program know, but...
Or send it to us.
Send it to us. We'll embarrass them on air. No, we won't.
No.
The competition director for whatever competition it was probably be a good person to contact, too.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean, send the beer to us. Don't even worry about other competition.
Don't go straight up to the president of BJCP.
Hey, who is it? Where? Anyway, okay, let's take a break, and then we come back. We're getting a Mark on the phone with his Octoberfest, which I'm looking forward to. He's pretty stoked about it, too, so hopefully we won't embarrass him too much. All right, hang on a second. We'll be back right after this lovely word from your friend, Nico Brew.
That's it. I've had it. I am never putting hops in my beer again.
What? Why?
It's just too ridiculous. Insane prices, stupid contracts, high shipping costs, crappy selection.
Dude, you need Nico Brew.
Nico Brew will rock your f***ing face right the f*** off your f***ing skull. $5 shipping to all 50 states, plus fantastic international rates get you low prices on Nico Brew's great selection of hops and more. Whether you're a home brewer, a pro brewer, or a homebrew shop owner, Nico Brew can get you the hops you need in increments big and small, single orders, spot buys, or full contracts. And there's only one place to join the uber special secret elite bare bones club where you'll get the best deals anywhere.
Holy f***ing shit!
NicoBrew.com. NIKOBREW. Nico Brew, your bare bones buddy in the brewing business. Now, back to the examination.
All right, it is Dr. Homebrew, and we are back. And with us on Skype, we have Mark. Mark, are you with me?
I'm here.
All right. Wow, we're 2 for 2, boys.
2 for 2 on Skype. Woo!
Pretty good. Technology is a beautiful thing. All right, Mark, so you have an Octoberfest for us, right?
Yes, I do.
Nice. Is this your first time brewing this style?
No, I've brewed it a few different times. This was my first time doing a full triple decoction brew with the recipe, though.
Wow. I've even never done that. That's crazy.
We're all smelling the beer. That's what that pause was. It smells pretty good.
Good.
It does smell good. How long have you been homebrewing to pull off a triple decoction? That's insane.
About 2.5 years, but because I've been listening to Drew Strong in the session, I've picked up on a lot of tips over those 2.5 years. So thought I would jump right into a triple decoction.
Did you start with like a single decoction or a double decoction, or you just said, forget that? If I'm going to do it, I'm going to waste a lot of time.
So it's funny. I actually did this first, no decoction, using just the basic ingredients. Then I went to a single decoction and now triple decoction, and I did a comparison of all three of them to see what differences I'd find.
Wow, you are insane. And what were those differences? Did you find any?
I did, yeah. I mean, I definitely found that with the triple decoction, you get a lot more of that malt forward in the aroma and the flavor as well. This one, I think, is coming across a little bit sweet for my liking, but I can definitely tell a difference between the three.
Okay, well, let's jump right into this, Brian. It's your go, dude.
Yeah, in the nose, there's moderately rich toasted malt aroma in there. Definitely is the first thing you get. No esters noted, clean lager there. And the hop's just low, spicy, kind of what you expect for the style in the background, but just supporting. I thought I got a little kind of a light honey-like kind of note in there in the malt, or perhaps a hint of a light oxidation coming in, but it wasn't bad. It just smelled just slightly kind of wordy and honey-like, but there weren't any big flaws. That was just a real minor note. No DMS or diacetyl in there. Very cleanly brewed. So the appearance has this nice, has this deep kind of reddish orange, kind of light amber color. Just really good clarity. It has the right color for the beer. They should be a little orangey looking, and I don't know if the decoction helps with that. Did you get a more richness of color with the triple decoction?
Yeah, it'll add.
I would
color,
think you would have.
Definitely.
Where the others might have been a little more yellowy and regular gold kind of. But this has that real depth of color that you see in really good Märzen's. It had a low off-white head that was some pinpoint bubbles, kind of mostly fine bubbles at the start, but it faded very quickly. I suspect that the bottles we got might be a little bit undercarbonated. So, but anyway, we'll get to that a little more later. The flavor definitely had a pleasant, rich, a lot of bread crusts and light toast in it. Good complexity of malt and the right flavors that you want. That Munich-y kind of happiness there. I didn't think it was too sweet. It finished kind of medium and not overtly sweet. Just enough, and maybe a hint towards the sweet, but not offensive. It wasn't cloying at all. The bitterness was just low and supporting, as it should be. Kind of just enough there. Very clean. Good lager ferment is apparent here. Just hint of fruitiness coming probably from the malt, I think, and the process probably. But alongside that bread crust, sometimes you get a little honey-like thing in there, that goes alongside it too, and that could be also a little oxidation, but I don't think it's not severely oxidized or anything. But that bread crust just lingers right into the aftertaste. Hop flavor is very low and just kind of supporting, vaguely spicy. Not, I really wasn't getting as much of the oxidation in the flavor as I did in the aroma of that kind of honey-like note, the light papery thing I was getting, but. Again, not bad. Mouthfeel-wise, it's medium-bodied as hoped. No warmth apparent. Just somewhat creamy, but it also had a fairly low carbonation. You drinking it out of the bottle. I don't know if are you drinking a sample from keg with us there, Mark, or do you have the bottles too?
I'm drinking out of the bottle just like you guys.
Okay, it was all bottled, or okay,
yep.
Cool. I didn't get any astringency, and the mouthfeel was just clean and pretty much what was expected. The carbonation was the one thing, but can't really knock it down that much for that. But it is, I think, doing your beer maybe a little bit of a disservice not having that carbonation there. It's a very nice, clean interpretation of the Märzen style. Obvious good ingredient choices and lagering technique and process. We can't guess that you did a decoction, but if I had to guess on a beer like this, I would say, yeah, they probably did, because it does make a difference.
It is fairly obvious when you taste it.
Yeah. I've tried making beers without doing decoction because, sometimes I'm a little lazy too, and you can use like melanoid and malt and a Bach and stuff, and you kind of approximate a little bit some of the flavors you get with that, but it's not the same. It's like manufactured. The aroma would come across a little cleaner without that faint hint of oxidation, but again, that's a very fine point. Also could stand to use a fair amount more carbonation to push out the good flavors that are here. Really nice job on this beer. I mean, the one note I would add is that it kind of tastes like the first sip of this beer tastes a little bit like the last sip of most really good German Märzens that I drink. You know, you've been drinking it for a while and you get to the bottom of that glass and it still tastes good, but it's just a little flatter and it has that, you know, all the flavors are there and it just comes across in a slightly different way. And that's what it kind of tastes like to me, I think. Really good beer. I gave it a 36, but if you bumped up the carbonation, you definitely bring it up several points. So, you know, nice job. Thank you.
Several points, really? Just from carbonation level?
Yeah.
Really?
It would push those flavors out a lot. It wouldn't have that kind of slightly flat taste that I'm getting, and yeah, it's easy. If you bottle beers off a keg too, sometimes you have to bump them up just a little bit before you bottle them for a competition. You know, get it up a little bit higher, and then because you're going to lose a little bit depending. You know, even if you have the fanciest counter pressure filler out there, you're still going to lose a little bit. Or if you're like most people like me and you use a bottle filler with a number 2 stopper on it and jam that in the bottle and kind of bleed the pressure manually, you know. And also be sure to purge your bottles with CO2 when you're bottling for a competition before you put the beer in there. And, you know, there's a lot of little tricks you can do in bottling. Bottling is a whole other topic, you know.
Right.
Is it bottle conditioned or is it from keg?
It's from a keg.
Okay.
I use the Blickman beer gun.
Yeah. That's good product.
Lee, why don't you add to that?
Well, Brian gave a pretty good description of it there. I'm not going to add a whole lot to a repetition of the same things, but definitely picked up a lot of those toasty melanoidins, sweet malt, very low hops in general, a little bit of a cherry flavor in there. It's probably coming from some Munich malt. I quite often get that with Munich malt. Medium body. Carbonation is pretty low. I think that kind of hurt the beer. Those malt flavors, which is what this style is all about, are actually quite nice. I like that a lot. What I did get in here, I mean, the carbonation was low, and that I thought was an issue because that kind of takes away the head and the presentation of it, which is a big part of this style, is to have that nice creamy head that should just really last and linger, and that just went right away. And it takes away the kind of creaminess and the mouthfeel that you want with this beer. So it kind of hurts it there. I would love to have had this gassed up to the proper level. I think it might have been as Brian said, several points higher on the score. It would be pretty nice. The other thing I got a touch of that sort of honey character you talked with the oxidation. I also was talking with Brian earlier, kind of a sulfur character in here. Sulfite, not sulfide. Sulfide would be the rotten egg. Sulfite sort of more the sharper, almost burnt match kind of thing.
Do get that, yeah.
And I'm getting a moderate amount of that, although some of it might be getting kind of confused with a little bit of hop flavor, too. I wasn't really picking that up earlier, but it could have some kind of lavendery hop character to it. What kind of hops did you use in here?
I just used Mount Hood.
Mount Hood,
yeah,
okay.
Very, very small amount at the beginning of the boil. I think, 23 IBUs.
And no flavor hops?
No flavor, no. Just the one addition at the beginning.
Then that's probably just some sulfur I'm picking up. So, I mean, most lager ferments will put out a lot of sulfur, and it sounds like you've done a few of these, so you probably know. I mean, you do lager ferment in a closed fridge, you open the door when that thing's cranking, it'll put out enough sulfur to practically knock you over. But it's not something you want in the beer, so a good vigorous ferment should scrub it out. But sometimes, you'll need the yeast. It's a little bit of yeast hanging around during the later stages, and the lagering will reabsorb some of that too, and it will also scrub out as those ferment out the last point or two of gravity as well. You need to make sure that the beer can vent during that stage, so the sulfur can evaporate and get out of there. So I thought the sulfur was a little bit high in the beer. Other than that, a little bit of sulfur, a touch of oxidation, is kind of flat. Sweep those things aside, this is actually a really nice Oktoberfest. Good malt flavors, clean ferment other than the sulfur, but there's no signs of diacetyl or DMS, which are the usual problems you get with this, especially the DMS. No sign of contamination or anything. I thought it was very nice. So all in all, I thought it was a pretty good beer. I gave it a 30. I'd give it probably 5 to 8 or maybe more points higher if it was properly carbonated up. But I think that was a pretty nice beer. The one thing for carbonation, if you're doing it, I don't know how you're doing it. Blickman certainly is a good tool to do this with. The tricks that I like to use to make sure you get the carbonation levels right, maybe dial it up a pound or two higher than you're intending for the pressure. Sanitize your bottles, and I'll usually put a little cap of foil on them, and I'll throw them in the freezer overnight. You want those bottles really cold. And then make sure your beer is about as cold as the refrigerator will get, because cold helps the CO2 stay in solution. So you do all this really cold, you'll get better carbonation. Less loss during bottling.
Some folks even put their kegs in a bucket full of ice while they're bottling just to keep it. Because as you're bottling, sometimes the first bottle goes fine, then you start getting a little more foam on the second bottle, and it goes worse and worse, and you get inconsistent bottles from one to the next.
Yeah.
All those tips are great tips.
Yeah, make sure you cap it as soon as you can. Don't let them all sit there lined up with the caps just sitting on them for half an hour venting out the gas. And put that cap on there right away. And, of course, maybe you did all this. I don't know. But that's sort of the general advice I would give for a beer that came out that was bottle keg filled but kind of flat.
Try to cap on foam, too, if you can, to avoid the oxidation.
Yeah.
Mark, do you have any questions for the guys?
Yeah, I had a couple of things. The first one is, this is about 50% Munich in my grain bill here. Do you think if I bumped down the Munich and bumped up the Vienna and Pilsner a little bit, it might, I don't know, it might kind of calm down some of those Munich-y flavors you get and maybe help my score there?
No, I personally would say you want those Munich-y flavors. That's what this beer is all about.
I agree. I think the amount of Munich-y flavor in it was right on the level you want it. If it was a little more carbonated, it could push off even more of those. I don't know, but it seemed right to me.
Yeah, I've seen people make these. I've done them myself, 80 to 100% Munich malt. It's great.
Fantastic.
So you think you should increase?
Well, if he's doing a Munich Vienna blend, it's a slightly different take on it, so he could stick with that, or he could shift over to more Munich oriented. It's kind of up to the brewer.
I think and some people think of Munich of Märzen and Octoberfest as two distinct styles. And I kind of do. Like, you get an Oktoberfest beer, and it's a little lighter. If you wanted to call it like an Oktoberfest that would pour in the beer halls at Oktoberfest, you would probably want to lighten that Munich up just a little bit. But I think of this beer as, and I judged it as, to my taste, as a Märzen, and it has that richness of malt that you get in a nice solid Märzen. Just like that beer. I think one thing you could also do is, experiment with that hop. And, Mount Hood is a descendant of Hallertau Mittelfrüh, but, and sometimes it's a good idea to use the local hop that is fresh, and if you have access to it, rather than get the hop that was shipped from Germany and who knows how it was handled. But you could experiment with using the Hallertau Mittelfrüh or another noble hop in there and see what happens if you can get a hold of some fresh stuff and play with that. But the hop was working. If you bumped it up a little bit, you might notice, oh wait, this is kind of a little different hop. It might come across more Mount Hoody and less of the noble, but the hop wasn't very noticeable. You could stand to bump it up a little bit and it'd still be in balance, and it might balance some of that sweetness out that you're talking about. But that's just an idea. I wouldn't go crazy with that. Just a faint adjustment or switching of hop.
All right. Anything else, Mark?
No, I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
Really nice job lagering. That is a hard skill to develop, and I think you've got it. You got that part down pretty well. The sulfury thing was not offensive, and lagers can be a little bit sulfury, and you can get away with it. It wasn't over the threshold of being annoyingly sulfury lager beer, and none of the other things you don't want, like the acetaldehyde or anything in there. It was just right.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark, for sending that in, man. That was great.
Hey, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Cheers.
All right. Well, let's take a break. Take our final break of the evening. And then come back. We'll give our little, final word of advice or kind of recap, I suppose. And then get out of here. What do you guys think?
Deep thoughts. We can just spout wisdom at the end of the show, and it'll be...
No. Oh, we've been doing it all along. We need a break. Okay. We got to tell a joke.
Right. Oh, yeah.
We never joke around here.
Yes, we're so serious.
Yes. I know, right?
This show's been kind of serious, actually.
You must brew a beer this certain way.
All right, hang on a second, everybody. It's Dr. Homebrew.
Since the first time the Brewing Network microphones turned on, More Beer was behind it. More Beer sponsors the programming on the BN because, like you, they love brewing. And like the Brewing Network, they love sharing their knowledge.
Morebeer.com isn't just a website to place your next equipment or ingredient order. Morebeer.com also gives you access to free beer information that will make you a better brewer. Go to morebeer.com and click into the Learning Center. You'll find podcasts, technical facts, video tutorials, and more, including access to The Buzz, More Beer's social network of more than 5,000 members. And some of them might even be crazier about beer than you are. Get over to morebeer.com today and take advantage of The Buzz, the forum, the Learning Center, and make sure you're signed up to receive the newest More Beer catalog. More Beer, bringing you absolutely everything for beer making.
Hello, fellow BNers. This is Sully from the 21st Amendment Brewery located in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park. Before Nico and I opened the 21A and before I was a professional brewer, I homebrewed on my small 4-burner apartment stove in a back house in Santa Monica, California, making my extract brews before graduating to the daunting idea of all-grain brewing. Homebrew books and information was hard to come by back then. The internet hadn't been invented yet, along with other things we take for granted today, like electricity and potable water. One thing I wish I had back then when I was learning was a radio show that could teach me the ins and outs of brewing and answer questions that I had about homebrewing, a resource for making great craft beer. The 21st Amendment Brewery is excited to be a proud sponsor of Dr. Homebrew, a great show that teaches you what you need to know about making incredible beer. Good stuff. Listen up, you might learn something. I certainly did. And thanks for your support. Tasty Crack Kings.
I'm sorry to tell you this, but we're going to have to pour you out.
Back to Dr. Homebrew.
All right, and we are back. We're wrapping up the show here. We're going to run through our 2 guys. We had Andy and Mark on. Andy had the brown ale, and we had a few notes for him. He's only been brewing about a year, so, guy's still learning. Basically, I had 3 things. It was fermentation temperature, fresh yeast, and basically just redo the recipe.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, maybe that sounds a little more harsh.
I would agree with the first 2. The
we
last one, maybe I just throttled back the sugar. The rest of the recipe, I think, was sort of hidden under all that crazy yeast esters and alcohol and the wood from the bourbon and stuff. Probably less sugar would be good. Maybe a little darker crystal malt if he wants to get that kind of darker sugar flavor in there.
So redo the recipe.
Sort of analogous, but partially. Yeah, not like totally. Oh, yeah, and add more flavor hops.
Oh, yeah.
Right, yeah.
So redo the recipe.
Maybe some aroma hops. And get some fresher yeast. Yeah, I think you should make the guys at whatever store sold them like yeast pack. They toasted his beer by selling them, and unless he bought that, let it sit under the TV for 3 months before he used it.
Right. Yeah, it depends on when he bought it versus when he smacked it, right?
Yeah, but if he bought it, he kept it in the fridge if he didn't use it, and used it right away or within a couple days. That should have just lit right up and gone.
Right,
not have been like
the
that.
guy got a bum yeast pack. That's all it was.
It happens.
It happens, but you can be stupid too, and buy your yeast go to the homebrew shop first, and then go do all your grocery shopping on a 100-degree day, and leave it sitting in the van. And your yeast is going to be toast at the end of that.
Yes.
For 4 hours in the car, and you're just like, I need some cottage cheese. I need some of this, and
something tells me I don't want to go shopping with Brian.
No, I don't eat cottage cheese. Actually.
Oh, okay.
I'm just like. You could be happily
sounded like a little old lady at the store.
Choosing
the
things off the
coming
shelves.
Over. What are they going to eat? Well, I'll make cottage cheese.
I forgot I need to go to the big box store and buy some speakers. I'll do that today too. Who cares if it's 110 and my yeast is sitting in the car?
Oh, where do you come up with this shit?
Experience.
I just work here.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Well, that was it for Andy, right?
Andy's really trying hard, and he's enthusiastic. I hope he keeps trying on this and
absolutely
makes that recipe again, brew it a few times, dial it in.
Absolutely.
And send it to us again then.
Yeah, we'd love to try it. And then there was Mark. Triple decoction, crazy man.
Yeah. The only thing with Mark's, was a little undercarbonated in that bottle, and hopefully some of the tips there would help. And next time it is one of the hardest things though. But when you're sending a beer for competition, it's a good idea to bottle a couple extra so you can, if you bottled it and you thought you did it right, and then you check it before you put put in the entry, it's a little low. Well, you could always, just drink that beer and bottle a few more off the keg and dial it in a little better. Then you can also have one extra bottle too, where you save it for, some people save it for a competition day and drink it alongside the judges virtually, and kind of taste the beer on the day it's being judged. And then, they might say, oh, this picked up a little oxidation at the time that it's been sitting here. Maybe I need to work on that process or whatever, just kind of be able to taste and objectively kind of taste your own beer. That's one of the hardest things, though. It's like everybody likes their own beer. Everybody likes the taste of their own brand of beer.
Yeah, you always probably score your beer 10 points higher than it deserves if you know that it's yours, because it's your baby. You love it. But yeah, if you're counter pressuring, freeze your bottles. Make sure the beer is as cold as you can get it. Don't leave it sitting there for a while before capping it, or even with the cap sitting on. Now get those things crimped on there right away. Mm-hmm. Make sure you got foam up to the tops. There's no oxygen in there, and just keep it cold, cold, cold the whole time. And like Brian said, if you're doing for a comp, do a few extra bottles if you're not doing the entire batch at once. Make sure you got the carbonation right. And if you don't, go back, bump it up higher, and do another batch. It's probably a good way to do it.
Mark.
Until you totally have your procedure down and know exactly how it's going to work for you.
Right.
But Mark's a brave man. I mean, the bottling is one little element, and he went through all these Herculean efforts to do the lagering and the triple decoction. He's a brave man, and he's making some good lagers out there. So
that's right.
We need more brewers like Mark out there and sending us beer.
That's right. He gets to share the True Believer Award here.
That's true. The non-existent award.
Right.
All right, everybody. We are done here. Dr. Homebrew is officially over with. Thanks again to Andy and Mark. And I will get your addresses over to 5-Star. The fine folks at 5starchemicals.com. They not only sponsor this great show, but they also send out little prize packs. And you get some PBW and I think some Star Sand and kind of some other stuff. So if you're on the show, if you're interested in being on the show, and especially if you're interested in getting that nice prize pack from 5-Star, email me, jp@thebrewingnetwork.com, and I will eventually be in contact with you. We have a few-month waiting list, but, there's always room for one more. So shoot me an email. Andy, Mark, look for that prize pack in a couple weeks from 5-Star Chemicals. Brian, Lee, thank you guys for joining us again.
Like 21A stickers, too, and stuff? Or
no.
That's okay.
No. Just 5-Star stuff right now. But
we like 21A.
If you come out to San Francisco, Lee and Brian will meet you at the 21A for a beer. And
there you go.
And they'll pay. All right, everybody. Until next time, this has been Dr. Homebrew. Thanks for listening.
It's all good.